I'll need to go and write this down. But I would get.
This is
I know I didn't get there. I just parked in the alley across the street. Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
they like money now. Like money.
We had 8 seats. They included no problem, but the way we had the sign-in didn't work because of the closing of the streets. So we kind of improvised. He's okay. He's not.
He's okay.
We'll take care of it.
Huh? No, I'm gonna sit here and listen to y'all because I gotta bow down to y'all and everything, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm right here. Who's Tyler?
Okay. Carlos.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what's your name? Okay, Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone.
You gotta pull a number.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Okay.
It's a great delight that so many of you, I don't know where you parked or how you got here, but you pressed your way to get here this afternoon. And it really speaks well of the Washington, D.C. community that neither rain, nor hail, nor sleet, nor snow, nor the president in the next block will deter you from coming out and participating in this significant forum tonight. I was just asking, I think that, and I was thinking that this is perhaps the last one. Do y'all have to go to any more? Huh? They said no. Oh. This is about the last one. The mayor said there's about 10 more to go, but this is the last one, hopefully, that they will have to attend, or the community will have to be involved in. Yesterday, our citizens started voting, and will be voting up to April 1. And so we're delighted this evening to have you here at the National Cathedral of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. This church is over 175 years have stood at the vanguard and at the door of this community to make sure that it represents all of the citizens of Washington, D.C. We're delighted to have you. Our doors are open to you. We're delighted to have full participation of the candidates this evening. Give them a hand. And we're delighted to have you this evening. Give yourselves a hand. Again, let me just thank all of you for coming. Let me thank those who organized it. Aware, African American women, access, aware, okay. And with those of you who are with this organization, will you stand? Give them a hand. And I want to also thank Metropolitan AME Church for joining and sharing in with Aware to make sure that this event can happen tonight with the members of Metropolitan staff. Again, thank you, and I will turn this over to Sister Doris Collins, and she will be our presenter and leader for this evening. Give her a hand.
Thank you very much. I am Doris Collins, president of AWARE for the moment, and we have worked very diligently along with the members of Metropolitan to bring this group of distinguished candidates to you, because we believe a well-informed citizenry will produce good results. And we hope that this will be a stimulating meeting for all of you. You've met the women of AWARE at Metropolitan. We had a number of co-hosts, several of whom I hope got through the blockades to get here this evening. And I would like to quickly go through the list because they did a lot to help us publicize the event and also to encourage people to come out. The group, they're on our posters, but I do want to acknowledge their participation. The 100 Black Men of Greater Washington, Black Women for Positive Change, Concerned Black Men, Continental Incorporated, Washington, D.C. chapter, the D.C. Federation of Democratic Women, the Federal City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, yay, Henry C. Gregory III Family Life Center Foundation, and I know their president is here. We're very pleased about that. The National Congress of Black Women, the Rosa PAC, the Metropolitan Group Incorporated, Society Incorporated, Washington, D.C. chapter, Trinity Episcopal Church, the Links Incorporated, and we have the chapters of Capital City, Metropolitan, Potomac, and Washington. The Social Justice Community Outreach Ministry of Shiloh Baptist Church, the Social Action Committee of John Wesley AME Zion Church, College Summit, the Association of Black Social Workers, and the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable. Could you give all of those groups? Only gain useful information from this evening, and I truly thank you for braving the blockade. I know he's very popular with us, and so we're just going to say, okay, we're honored to live in a city where the president shares our streets, and we'll put up with the inconvenience occasionally. We want you to we're not only happy you're here tonight, but we want to encourage all of you. I'm not really worried about this group. You will show up at the polls, we know that. But please encourage your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your coworkers, your cousins, whoever, to please be there on or before April 1. And let's help Washington continue to be this beautiful city that it is. I'm gonna turn it over now to Rebecca Chastain, who will quickly go through the rules of debate. And after that, Sam Ford, we're very honored to have him, Bureau Chief for Washington from WJLA TV. He will moderate the forum.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Chastain, and it is my job to share with you the rules for this evening's forum. So here they go. Each candidate will have 1 minute to give an opening statement and 2 minutes to give a closing statement. Following all of the opening statements, there will be a question and answer period. Questions will be presented by our moderator, Sam Ford. Question responses will be 90 seconds maximum. Questions from the audience are to be submitted in writing on 3x5-inch cards available at the Aware greeting table, which is right outside of the sanctuary. Questions must be submitted at the Aware greeting table prior to 7:15 p.m. Please note that there is no guarantee that all questions submitted will be asked. Each candidate has 5 30-second rebuttals available to him or her during the forum. The candidate can choose not to use the full 30-second rebuttal time. However, rebuttal time cannot be banked for later use. We have an official timekeeper. Please raise your hand, Dr. Brown. She will signal the time remaining for responses and rebuttals, as well as for opening and closing statements. She will signal when half of the allotted time has expired, when there are 10 seconds remaining, and when the time has expired. Any candidate or person in the audience who engages in disruptive behavior will be asked to leave this facility. Unless you have registered as a member of the media, you may not photograph or record the forum. Candidates may use their personal written notes. However, they may not use charts, graphs, audio, or visual materials to augment forum statements or responses. No banners, signs, posters, balloons, or loudspeakers are allowed inside or outside of the facility, and no campaign materials may be distributed inside of the sanctuary. So those are the rules, and now I turn the microphone over to Sam Ford.
Thank you. Well, actually, I've been in this place many times. I used to come to the 8:30 services here on Sunday morning and would see my good friend Dorothy Gilliam over there, who invited me to be the moderator. Of course, Dorothy has been a wonderful person working with Ballou High School, and she's had my camerawoman Peggy and I over there teaching students at Ballou television for several years, so it's a great thing. In this church, I also remember Dorothy invited me to fly down to Baton Rouge during Katrina. And this whole church, a big part of this church went on a plane down there, and they brought supplies to the people, to the AME churches down in Louisiana, which was also a very nice affair, very nice trip. And Rosa Parks' funeral was here, I remember that. And President Obama was here one Sunday not too long ago, and somebody told me, and we came over and got to see him, so we were happy about that. But anyway, this is about the mayor's race in Washington, and the candidates are here. I see all the candidates except one. Maybe he'll be here later. Nevertheless, we're going to get started. We have an order. I guess it was chosen by lot. And the first person who will be able to give was it 1 minute opening statement? 1 minute opening statement. 1 minute opening statement, and you'll get a 2-minute closing statement. The 1 minute opening statement first, we're going to hear from Carlos Allen.
Good afternoon. All right, good. Well, first, I always like to give honor to God, who's number one in my life. My name is Carlos Allen, and I am running for mayor in the Democratic Party for Washington, D.C. And the reason why I'm running, I tell people all the time, is because I personally see issues that are going on in the city that's deplorable. And I've been living in the city for 25 years, and I've been seeing homeless situations going on, and no one's doing anything about it. Gentrification is pushing forward, and no one's doing anything about it. We have children who basically not graduate from high school, about 50% of them, and no one's doing anything about it. And we have our elders who are basically being pushed out their homes, and no one's doing anything about it until now it's time for an election situation. So what I'm here to do is to focus on those situations, but also focus on economic situation more than anything. Because I tell people all the time, if you're not making any money in the city, then you're not making any sense. So we have to make sure we push forward to get people on the right track so they can start living the American dream, and that's basically doing what they need to do in the city. And thank you, and God bless.
Okay, and that's Ms. Brown holding up those signs, and basically she's going to give you a stop at 15 seconds, okay? So you don't have to just abruptly stop, but finish your sentence. So that's what that's all about. Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Mayor Vincent Gray.
Well, good evening. I want to thank all of you all for coming out tonight. I want to thank the organizations who've come together to put on this forum and to continue the discussion about the future of the District of Columbia. I am the only one up here who can answer the question of what promises did I make and what promises have I delivered on. First of all, I said we were going to be a fiscally solvent city. When I entered office, we were in a very precarious position. We were at the point where there were no more discretionary dollars. We now have the largest fund balance in the history of the District of Columbia at $1.75 billion. I also said we were going to continue education reform. I have been the architect, the proponent, if you will, of early childhood education, making that a hallmark of this administration. We now have the most robust early childhood education program in America, with 70% of our 3-year-olds in school all day and 92% of our 4-year-olds in school all day. And there will be more.
Next, Councilmember Jack Evans.
Good evening, everyone. Metropolitan, thank you for having us. Aware, thank you for getting all of these individuals together. And welcome to Ward 2, the ward I represent on the council. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm running for mayor because at this time in our city's history, we really need someone with a steady hand to get us through what is somewhat becoming a crisis situation. I got into politics when I first moved here working with John Wilson. Anybody remember John? John was my council member in Ward 2. And when John was elected chairman of the council, I ran for his seat, and I won. And for the last 23 years, I've represented Ward 2 and the city. And a city that we have taken from back in 1991 when we were struggling to one of the most dynamic cities in America today. Right now, we need someone in the mayor's office who has the leadership, the experience, and the knowledge to bring the prosperity that our city is now enjoying to everyone in the city. And I have the ability to do that. We did it in Ward 2. We can do it around the city. So I'm here tonight to ask for your vote, starting right now, all the way through April 1st. Thank you all for coming out.
Next, we will hear from Councilmember Muriel Bowser.
Well, good evening, Metropolitan, and thank you, Aware, for inviting everybody here to talk about what I think, and many of you think because I hear it from you on your doorsteps, is among the most important elections in the District of Columbia. 4 years ago, we were promised a government built on the platform of leadership, character, and integrity. We were promised that we would continue big progress in school reform, that we would grow our middle class, we would have affordable housing, and we would have a city that we could all be proud of. And I have to tell you, over the last several years, and especially the last several months, I've been concerned that we've broken all of those promises. I launched my campaign for mayor last March 23rd because I knew that we had to get ready for a big, bright future. You think we have stresses from growth now? What's it going to be like when 200,000 more Washingtonians are here? We have to have the right people in place and the right focus to move our city forward. And that's why I'm asking for your vote on April 1st.
Next, we'll hear from Councilmember Vincent Orange.
Well, good evening. My name is Vincent Orange. I'm number 4 on the ballot, and I'm here tonight to ask for your vote on Tuesday, April 1, as well as through early voting. I'm running for mayor to bring a more balanced, a more reasonable, and a more fair approach to governing the affairs of the nation's capital without leaving anyone behind or taking anyone for granted. I've had the opportunity to be in the forefront to bring good-paying jobs to the city. I brought you the living wage at $11.50 per hour. The minimum wage is $11.50 per hour, and the living wage at $13.60 per hour, and paid sick leave for our tip wage workers. Last week, the majority of the council joined in my legislation to build $1 billion of affordable housing over the next 10 years for seniors, the homeless, those households from $30,000 to $60,000, and of course, 80% of the AMI folks as well. I will also educate our children, make sure our 3- and 4-year-olds are prepared for kindergarten, and our 3rd graders upon entering the 4th grade can read independently and can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Once again, I'm Vincent Orange. I'm number 4 on the ballot, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
And Dorothy Gilliam handed me a note saying, please silence your cell phones. I hadn't silenced mine, so if you don't mind, go ahead and do that so that it won't be a problem tonight. Next, we're going to hear from Rita Jo Lewis.
Good afternoon, Metropolitan and Aware, and I must say good afternoon to my sorority sisters who are here from Delta Sigma Theta, but most importantly to the residents of the District of Columbia. My name is Rita Jo Lewis. I'm number 3 on the ballot. And I think this race boils down to 2 words. It's called full disclosure. Full disclosure means not only am I the only one, and Mr. Mayor, you were not there the other night, but when the question was asked by the reporters, who would reveal their taxes? All of my opponents up here said they would not. When I say full disclosure around putting your personal information out there, it is for the residents of the District of Columbia to know who we are and what we will do. And in that, it is around our ethics. It is around us having an open and transparent government. And as your next mayor, the work that I intend to bring to you is to talk to you about tonight issues around housing, homelessness, and job creation. I look forward to talking with you tonight.
Next, we're going to hear from Andy Shalal.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Shalal, and I'm running for mayor because I'm tired of seeing this city becoming that tale of 2 cities, 2 separate and unequal cities. I'm tired of politicians saying that the city is doing well while we are number 1 in childhood hunger. I'm tired of politicians saying that we're doing well while we are number 51 in education, and the gap between black kids and white kids has only gotten wider since 2007. It has doubled. I'm tired of politicians saying that we are doing fine when our homeless population has more than doubled overnight in 1 year. I'm tired of the way that the city is run because I believe that with an excess amount of money that we have in our budget, we can do so much better. I am a business person. I understand the idea that when things are good is when you invest. You don't hoard the money. You invest it in the people. The people that are benefiting right now are the developers and big businesses. That money is not trickling down to a lot of people on the ground. And while we talk about a rainy day fund, it's raining on a lot of people. And it's time for us to start thinking about those people and really investing in the future of the city. I know how to lead. I know how to succeed. I'm the owner of Busboys and Poets, and I ask for your vote on April 1st. Thank you.
And here's a little announcement. Will the person driving a silver Acura license number EM8601 DC plate please see the attendant as soon as possible? They need the key remote next door, okay? And finally, Mr. Michael Green, who is a write-in candidate, he will have a statement, opening statement and a closing statement, but will not participate in the general debate. Mr. Green.
I want to thank everybody for coming out at this historic church here, Metropolitan AME Church. My name is Michael Green, as Sam said earlier, write-in candidate for mayor of Washington, D.C. And it really is a pleasure to be a part of the process. And I'm a 25-year community organizer here in Washington, D.C., current resident of Ward 4. Grew up in Ward 1, and I was born in Ward 6, which is D.C. General Hospital. And I've been in the front lines of community involvement in terms of affordable housing and things of that nature, in terms of those issues out there. 25-year veteran of criminal justice professional here in Washington, D.C. So I've also been an educator in D.C. So some of the candidates talk about what they want to do in terms of education. I've been in the front lines, in the schools, middle school and high schools here in the District of Columbia. Glad everybody came out today, and I'll see you at the polls April 1st. Of course, you all know early voting is out there right now. Consider me Michael Green. Thank you very much.
Okay, so those are your candidates. Here are the questions. The first one, over 45% of DC students now attend charters, which takes the cream, the best and the brightest. What is your position on a charter moratorium? I'm going to start with Mr. Shalal and work backward.
I think it's time for a charter moratorium. Charters are here to stay, and I know for a lot of people they've been the saving grace for their kids, and I understand that. But we cannot put all our parents like crabs inside of a barrel and have them climb over each other to get out so that they can make it a success for their kids. Our school system has failed our kids. The fact of the matter is we continue to call schools failing. But what really fails is us. When schools fail, that means we haven't done a good job. We have not provided the right support to make up for some of the conditions some of the kids have to come through. Schools cannot make up for poverty on their own. If you ask a lot of these people that have sent their kids to private schools, they spend $30,000 to $40,000 for a private school kid, and yet they feel like $10,000 or $20,000 is too much for a public school kid. For me, it has to be justice for everyone. Our school system has really done an abysmal job. This idea of having a war on teachers that has gone on for 7 years, this idea of having schools closing down, this idea of having our kids continue to fall between the cracks is not working. The fact of the matter is also that white kids at this point are succeeding at 78% proficiency rate, while black kids are still at 12%. 12%, ladies and gentlemen, that has doubled in the last 7 years. And if we continue on this path, it will take a very, very long time for us to right it. So there are a lot of kids are actually being lost behind because of schools. I believe that it's time to have a moratorium on charter schools. Charter schools should not be able to cherry pick and be able to send kids back that they don't want at the end of their, whenever they feel it's appropriate. So I believe it's time for us to invest in the public school system and continue to make the public school system successful.
You know what? I am a product of public schools. And I was raised in Statesboro, Georgia, in the segregated South, and in 7th grade, I was asked by my family if I wanted to integrate my junior high school. So I was one of 32 who had a choice. There is no way that I would look a parent in the face and tell them that I'm not going to give them a choice of what school they're going to send their children to. So not only am I a supporter of public schools, I am a supporter, and we must be and will be the mayor of all the schools. I still go back to saying our teachers are our most prized possession. And in that possession, we have to figure out, because I think we know, we have high-performing schools and we have low-performing schools. It is time for us to marry them together to see what is working in the deals and the Wilsons that everybody is so busy trying to get into. We've got to make sure that there's the curriculum, that we are matching them up with what's going on in those particular programs. We now are sitting here in Washington, D.C., where the Common Core standards are getting ready to be implemented, and we have agreed to sign on to that. Standards, we know, are very important, but we also have to look at issues around extending our school day. But the most important thing I will tell you when I'm traveling around the country, around the city, the parents tell me they're terrified about what's going on in our middle schools and what's going on in our high schools, because it has to be the entire continuum of education that, as your next mayor, I will focus on.
Yes, I will support a moratorium on charter schools. I believe there's a proper balance now, and now we need to zero in on the 47 non-performing schools. Those schools where 87% of our low-income families' children are not proficient in reading or math. And the mayor just proposed $116 million, and that's well and good, but he is not proposing that the $116 million goes to solve a problem. I believe the mayor, as well as Councilmember Bowser, have it wrong. The problem is not the middle school, it's what you're sending to the middle schools. And so we need to train our 3- and 4-year-olds for kindergarten. We need to assess that 3-year-old and find out whether they may need a pair of glasses because they can't see the words on the book. They may need a hearing aid because they can't hear the teacher. Let's find out what's going on with the 3- and 4-year-old. And then let's make sure we have a curriculum that reasonably ensures that our children are reading independently upon entering the 4th grade, and that they can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And why do we want to do this? Because the curriculum changes from learning to read to reading to learn. The curriculum is no longer dealing with how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It wants to introduce you now to decimals, fractions, and algebra, so you can move forward. So what's happening is the parents are peeling off at middle schools. They're sending their kids to the charter schools or to the private schools, and the middle schools have the problem. And therefore, we need to invest in early childhood education and make sure we're getting it done. It's okay to say I have 12,000 early childhood education students, but what are you putting in their head? And what investment are you making to make sure they can have a great educational foundation so they can move forward?
First of all, I want to take issue with the question. To say that the cream of our students are in charter schools, there are a lot of great kids graduating from DCPS schools. And keep that in mind, a lot of great kids who are getting a great education and doing very well. And I think to reinforce the notion that children who go to DCPS schools are inferior is an outrage. So I take issue with that question. Secondly, it isn't a question of putting a moratorium on charter schools, because first of all, it's a federal program that we can't do anyway. It's bettering, making our DCPS schools more quality schools. And what makes a great school? There are 5 things, very quickly: principals, teachers, curriculum, a safe environment, and the 5th one, which is the most important and probably the hardest, parental involvement. We need to get those 5 things in every one of our schools, and that will make a quality school. I am a parent of 3 children, as you know. I have triplets. My wife passed away when my kids were 6. And so for a long time, I was a single dad raising kids. And 2 notions came out of that. First, we need to get our children into school earlier. We have done a much better job. We now, at the mayor, I want to congratulate him. It was his program. We got kids into school at 4 years old, 3 years old. I want to get all of our children into school by 2 years old. What happens between 2 and 6 is critical. And then on the other side, when children come home from school at 3:30, 4 o'clock, we need to have our universities having students to help their children, as they did mine, in order to get homework done and get ready for the next day. We do that, every child in this city will have a great education.
I think what we have to do in this city is speed up the transformation of Tier 2, 3, and 4 schools. How do we get more Tier 1 schools has to be our focus, because we will get more kids in quality learning environments. I don't think you get that way by saying we can only focus on one sector. I think you have to focus on the whole system. I do think that we need some tweaks to how charter schools operate in the District of Columbia. First of all, I think we must have a neighborhood preference. To Sam's question, there is a wide perception, and in some cases it's true that people say parents who can advocate for themselves and find good opportunities head towards the charter schools. It's also the perception that charter schools don't have to serve the neighborhood. So that may also mean that parents who can fight and advocate for themselves find themselves in the charter schools. As charter schools have a greater share of the students in a given area, it's going to be necessary for them to serve the neighborhood as well. I also think that the charter school board should help the charter schools locate in areas that have the greatest need. It doesn't make sense for a charter school to locate in one part of the town and kids are coming all the way across town back and forth every day. So those are tweaks that we need.
The question was, do we support a moratorium on charter schools? And I do not support a moratorium on charter schools. I really think that the charter schools have created an environment of competition, and that is what the world is made of in this nation, and that is competition. And frankly, what you have started to see now is that not only are there certain charter schools that are performing very well, but also some of our DC public schools are performing well also. The reality is we now have the largest public education enrollment in the District of Columbia over the last 2 years than we have had in decades. And what we have seen is that enrollment has gone up in the charters, characteristically from 2,000 to 2,500 young people a year, and also an enrollment increase in the DC public schools. The fact of the matter was, I am the architect of early childhood education. And I appreciate the comments by Councilmember Evans about that. We have the most robust early childhood education program in America. One need only look at the test scores of young people who now have gotten to the 2nd and 3rd grade, compare them to a control group of kids who have not been in early childhood education, and you will see a significant difference in test scores. The reality is we will get to the point when there is no control group, because every child will have the opportunity to be in a program for 3- and 4-year-olds.
Well, first of all, I personally feel that the children should not be competing, they should be learning. So we have an issue where we have these charter schools that are basically able to pick and choose who they want to come to school. Now, we have high enrollment, but we have low graduation situation going on. So the problem is that we got to focus on how do we get our children graduating. So what I need to do is now focus on the parents and the grandparents. We got to tell people all the time, the city can't take care of your children if you can't take care of them. So I have to make sure that the parents and the grandparents are straight, because when the parents are straight and the grandparents are straight, they'll take care of the children. They're going to make sure the children are learning. The problem is that what we're doing is that we're taking resources out of our neighborhoods. We're closing down schools. We're closing down these schools. You know what that's called? That's called gentrification. Because basically what they're doing now is they're making sure that they, quote, take everything out of those communities and also now bring new schools in there, and then they tell your children that you can't go to those schools. That's craziness. And it's got to stop. So in the Carl Allen administration, we're going to stop that. But what we're going to do, no more than anything, is to focus on the 7th grade. You know, I believe that, yes, children can start school at 3 years old. That's great. The problem starts in the 7th grade. When a child comes in his own, when a child feels like, you know what, I can do whatever I want. Well, then what we got to do now is to focus on asking that child, what would they like to do? And if that child says, you know what, I would like to be an engineer, or put them in an engineering program, or they want to be a doctor, put them in a doctor's program. And then by the time they get to the 9th and 10th grade, they love it. By the time they get to the 12th grade, they're experts. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. I'm sorry? No, we're gonna keep moving here on this thing, if you don't mind. The next area that we've got questions, and we have a lot of questions, so we'd like to get the audience's questions to you. Now, if you're in your time, if you want to spend your 90 seconds talking about something else, go ahead. But we're gonna move ahead here. Okay. As high-income housing condominium communities in D.C. have proliferated, what are your specific plans to meet the housing needs for the rest of us? Mayor, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, housing has been a central theme of this administration. The fact of the matter is that living in the District of Columbia is becoming increasingly expensive because we've been a very successful city. Our population is growing by 1,100 to 1,200 people a month. We now have 647,000 people who live in the District of Columbia. And one of the things that I certainly want to prevent is that those people who have paid their dues over all these years and have worked hard to be in the District of Columbia will have a chance to be able to continue in this city. We've already invested $187 million in affordable housing. I'm not going to go into all the arcane details of what that means, but $187 million in affordable housing. And I just made the commitment a few days ago to invest another $100 million. There's no city in America investing almost $300 million in affordable housing to be able to keep people in the District of Columbia. This is a place that people want to be. I do not want to look up one day and find that the only people who can live in the District of Columbia are people who have incomes of $80,000, $90,000 a month, a year, or $100,000 or more. Our job is to make sure that we buy down the price of housing and that we continue to train people for jobs in the District of Columbia so that their income increases. If we do those two things, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to have a diverse population in this city.
Next, Ms. Bowser.
Affordable housing and how we get more of it is a central problem facing our middle class in the District of Columbia and facing people who are trying to get in the middle class in the District of Columbia. I am very excited that people are talking about affordable housing, that we have new commitments of $187 million and $100 million next time. It's going to take us $1 billion to get the 10,000 units that this mayor has promised, and that's a good thing, but it still leaves a big gap. We closed our public housing waiting list with 70,000 people waiting for public housing. This administration has basically turned its back on transforming public housing. Tony Williams set out a commitment many years ago to transform new communities at Lincoln Heights and Berry Farm and at Park Morton and at Noma. And we have seen no progress in the last 3 years. We have a homeless crisis on our hands. The least of these in our city are living now in recreation centers because we've dropped the ball on producing the permanent supportive housing that they need. We can do better. I go across this city, and what I've learned is nobody expects in a city this prosperous that we cannot make sure that we're putting in place homeless services that keeps children and women from living in recreation centers. We do have to continue on the path of producing more, as Mayor Gray has said. We also have to continue on the path of preserving more. There's a lot of people in this room who live in housing right now that's affordable for them, and we want you to stay there. That's why we have to invest in senior housing programs like Councilmember Anita Bonds has suggested that make it more affordable for our seniors to live and thrive here.
There are three components to affordability, and this is something that I've been involved in since the beginning. Tony Williams, then Councilmember Fenty, and myself started the Housing Production Trust Fund, which is funded this year with $187 million. And what we do is partner with not-for-profits to both build and renovate affordable housing. Rent control, which we have now extended for 10 years, again, provides an affordable option for tenants in our city. And property tax relief, which we rate when we put property tax caps and low rates, and then the senior citizens property tax bill, which just passed the council. If you are 70 years and older, if you've lived in the city 15 years, and if you earn less than $60,000 a year, you never have to pay property taxes again. Those are three approaches, yes, three approaches that we're taking. But on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, it's very critical as the neighborhoods begin to get more livable that we make sure that the people who have been here in the tough times get to stay here in the good times. And let me give the example of Shaw, not far up the road. When Shaw began to get better with a new supermarket, etc., we made sure that the individuals living in Gibson Plaza, when it was redone, came back. Immaculate Conception, if you know where I'm talking about. We're redoing the O Street Market, which will have an affordable housing component, as will Kelsey Gardens. Foster House is redone, all affordable. And further and further up as we go. That's the kind of hands-on approach that we need to take. Partnering with the nonprofits, making sure that the people who are in affordable housing now remains affordable, and the property tax relief. We do that, we can make sure that everyone can stay in this city.
First thing we have to do is we have to listen very carefully. Now we are a $12 billion government. We're coming off of a $321 million surplus. We have $1.75 billion in our reserves, yet we will not build affordable housing. January 8th, front page story, Washington Post. The Gray administration backs away from building the New Communities Initiative that came out of the Williams administration. That is to build the affordable housing for low-income families at Lincoln Heights in Deanwood, at Berry Farm in Anacostia, at Temple Courts in Noma, and at Park Martin in Parkview. In addition to that, I was the one that led the battle to reopen McKinley Tech as McKinley Technology High School, $85 million investment, and President Obama just gave it the School Excellence Award. Adrian Fenty looked at that and came back and said, if Orange can do that, we need to build $1 billion of school modernization program. And so now I'm back with legislation to build $1 billion of affordable housing in 4 categories. One is for seniors on fixed income. The second category is for homeless. The third category is for those $30,000 to $60,000 households, which I just got them the minimum wage of $11.50. Now I'm going to get them the homes. And then the traditional 80% of the AMI. But at the end of the day, stop hoarding money. They're going to tell you they got $187 million. Where is it? It's in a housing production trust fund. He's going to give you another $100 million. Where is it going to be? In another fund. All this money is in funds. They're not getting out to the people that deserve it because they're moving the people out of this city while they're hoarding money.
Sometimes I feel like when I'm standing up here, I'm in the twilight zone because, they're talking about a lot of promises, but we're talking about a contract. That's what we got to be talking about, a contract with the residents of the District of Columbia, that when you say that affordable housing is the #1 issue, you told us that. You told the political establishment, the mayor, the council, and everybody who was listening, the newspaper, that affordable housing was the #1 issue facing the District of Columbia. 3, it takes an election for money to get into, as Vince, as the councilman is saying, into a fund. All you have to do is go to forum after forum, and the groups out here who are totally committed will tell you one issue that is lacking around affordable housing, and that is the commitment from the top. The commitment to make sure that it becomes what I have put forth is a housing infrastructure issue. If we're going to be talking about affordable housing and all the young people that are coming in and the senior citizens that say we're here and we're not going anywhere, we are now having to make a commitment on a yearly basis, time and time again. Because we can talk about preserving public housing, we can talk about building low-income housing, but if we do not partner with those who have the commitment, and I mean the faith community, they got senior housing correct, that's who should be some of our prime partners. Nonprofits have gotten senior housing correct. That should be our partners. And so I once again say it's not just around a commitment, it is around disclosing to the residents of the District of Columbia exactly what it is that we will do and not what we say and we want to do.
Sorry about that. Leadership is not just about responding to crisis, it's about averting crisis. As a business person, I understand that a crisis is far more costly than an investment. So what's happened here is we have a crisis in our housing situation. This has been coming. We have lost 50% of our affordable housing inventory in the last 10 years. So it's no surprise that we have the housing crisis we have today. What cost us is to house a homeless family at DC General, it cost us $55,000 per family. That is not an investment that I'd like to see how my money goes. There's a much better way where we can invest in people before we have to send them to a shelter. There are many programs out there. Again, it's about the commitment and the willingness to make sure we fund them. The Housing Production Trust Fund has gone way down, as low as $10 million, I think, $15 million, and now it's back up to $187 million, but that's a long way from $10 million or $15 million till now, and that's one of the reasons why we have the housing crisis we have today. There are programs where we can put permanent supportive housing for people so that we have the wraparound services for those needy members of our community to make sure that they don't go back out in the street. There's programs for veterans, the way home, where we can bring them in and put them in some sort of permanent situations. There's Housing First, where you can put people quickly in a home so that they can be able to just weather the storm until they get over their situation. And last but not least, of course, is inclusionary zoning. Inclusionary zoning means you include in your projects housing that is affordable. We've turned the city into a pawn shop, and we've asked very little back in return from the developers. It is time for us to stop that and make sure that we continue to ask more and more from developers for one of the #1 cities in the country. Thank you.
Well, it's great to hear our council members talking these things as far as what they're going to do or what they're doing. But the problem is that they're not doing it. Let me tell you this. 44% of our homeless individuals have jobs. 44% of our homeless individuals have jobs, meaning they don't have a living wage job to be able to afford to live in the city. So we can sit here and talk about we're going to have $100 million in this trust fund, just like Vincent Orange saying, we're going to have $150 million, $300 million. But if you're not utilizing that money to make sure that folks are getting what they need, then of course it's not going to happen. And then we're going to continue to see our people being pushed out the city, plain and simple. Look, everything, again, is all about economics, all right? If you don't look at the economic situation of what's going on and get individuals that living wage job, then we're going to be in the same situation over and over again. And look, that means that we're doing the exact same thing over and over again, and we're going to try to get a different result, which at this point right now, that's totally insanity. So, I respect my peers right here, but at this point right now, they're not doing the job. We got to make sure that we're getting folks those homes that they need. And see, the thing is, what is affordable housing? if you're only making $9 an hour? If you're only making $11 an hour, what is affordable housing? That means you cannot afford to live in this city. So we've got to make sure that we focus on getting people a living wage job. And I've got the plan to do that, and we're going to discuss it when he talks about jobs. Thank you. All right, you're going to do that, Sam, right?
Thank you very much, and good to see everyone. I'm Councilmember Tommy Wells, and I'm running to be your next mayor. And thank you for holding this forum. Let me say that this is a major crisis regarding our affordable housing. We've talked about it in different debates. Every neighborhood across the city said this is a problem. And this is the first time in any debate that I have to say I agree completely with Rita Jo Lewis on this. She is exactly right. This is an issue that has to start at the top. If this is a priority for us, this is not an intellectual exercise at political forums across the city. Every month, at least 3,000 people move out of our city and 4,000 people move in. Demand is far outpacing supply. Our housing prices are skyrocketing. I moved here 30 years as a social worker, moved into a one-bedroom apartment. There's no way if I moved here now as a social worker that I would be able to afford an apartment. This is something that we have to address as a council and a mayor immediately, because we cannot wait until November. We cannot wait until next January. We are displacing Washington residents every month across this city. So we will have to deploy these ideas immediately, that we have to, we're losing affordable housing at a record rate. And so we have to move in quickly and really to provide the money that the buildings need in order to upgrade, where they're losing the 15-year affordable housing credits. All the different things that are causing us to lose the affordable housing cannot wait until this election's over.
Stand there with the mic, Mr. Wells. I want to ask you a question, and we're going to go back. And this isn't a time question. I just want to one answer. And it came in from the audience, and I think it's a good one. I would like each candidate to give us his or her definition of affordable housing. You don't have to give us a speech, but what is affordable housing?
Where we have the largest crisis right now is the housing that costs in the rent range between, say, $600 and $900 a month. That's the working, for the folks that are police, fire, teachers. They cannot afford to live in the city, and so that's one of the main areas.
$600 to $900 a month is what's
between
affordable.
$600 and $900 a month. That is what we're losing every month at a rapid rate, and that is the housing that's being sucked out of the district.
Mayor. What is affordable housing?
There actually is a very precise, clear definition of affordability. And it's imposed on the entire region, not just the District of Columbia. It's called the Area Median Income, and it applies to the District of Columbia and the surrounding areas. The area median income, when you include Prince George's and Montgomery and Fairfax, which is imposed upon us by the federal government, is around $106,000. And then affordability is determined as a percentage of that. So anything that's 100% of affordability would be $106,000 of household income. What we are pegging our investments in around affordable housing is around 30 to 50%. That would be a household income of $30,000 to $50,000. And you're right, Ms. Lewis, you did enter the twilight zone, because some of the answers that have been given up here about affordable housing truly are qualifications for the twilight zone.
Okay, let's try to stick to it. Affordable housing, what is your definition of affordable housing?
I think, Sam, it's largely agreed that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. If you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, it's not affordable. That means you won't be able to afford food, you won't be able to afford transportation, and you won't be able to afford the daily things that average people want. Am I right, Muriel? Yes. Okay, so if it's more than 30%, it's not affordable. Right.
Everyone who has spoken before me has the answer that's correct. The affordable housing is 30% of the AMI, which is determined on a regional basis. Now, you can make the argument, and it is being made by us at the council, that including Fairfax County and Montgomery County in our AMI makes no sense, because those are the two richest counties in America. And the AMI should be based basically on DC and Prince George's County, not the Maryland and suburban counties. So what that would do, though, is lower it to about $20,000 to $30,000 a year. And you take that, that you should spend about a third of your income on housing, comes out to about $8,000 a year, and divide it by 12 months in a year. So you're looking at trying to pay about $600 to $700 a month for your housing, and that is what affordable is. That's what the definition of affordable housing.
Where's that? You know, where we are today is pursuant to a plan called the Economic Resurgence of Washington, D.C., Citizens Plan for Prosperity. That took us from a $518 million deficit in 1999 to the $1.5 billion in the bank in 2007. And in that plan, Charlene Drew Jarvis, Anthony Williams, Alice Rivlin, they all figured it out and said, we're going to generate all this revenue, but we're also going to build 55,000 units of affordable housing. And of the 55,000 number, 19,000 will be apartments. So affordable housing is what we define it to be. The problem is we have these administrations that generate all this money, and they don't want to give the people what they promised. That's the reason why the mayor has backed away from the New Communities Initiative. He won't build the housing. We promised 1,500 units. Just do it. Like Michael Jordan said, just do it. We got the money, just do it, just build it. You want to build a soccer stadium, you build City Center,
okay.
$1 billion project.
Lewis.
Build the housing for the people.
You know what, I'm not going to argue with them over the definition, because I think that everyone has a kernel of the truth. The issue right now is for $600 to $900, the young people are telling me you can buy a room, you can buy a bed, and that might not even be a good bed. The issues right now with us is that, you know, when I came out in terms of running for mayor, I said we want to build a city that works for everyone. It really has to look at the definition of what's going to be good for our seniors, what's going to be good for our young people, what's going to be good for our low to moderate income families. Those are the definitions in terms of where they are in their income. It's what we need to be determining, not just about the academic exercise of the 30% or what it means about DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Affordable housing means different things to different people, obviously. It's where you are is what's affordable to you, but it is 30% of your income is usually the generally accepted criteria of what affordable housing is. The problem is that over a third of our population in the district are unable to afford it. They spend more than 50% of their income in order for them to be able to make a living. That means they're going without food, they're going without other necessities in life. So that's problematic. Inclusionary zoning has to be changed. We have to increase the amount of inclusionary zoning that we have, and we have to redefine what that means. Because right now, if you're making $80,000, you're eligible to be in an inclusionary zoning apartment, which means that it leaves out most of the people in the city or in that region. We continue to break down housing and rebuild it with inclusionary zoning, and yet we don't have enough housing for the people that we pushed out. So we need to make sure that we have it for everybody that we displace, so that they can come back and live in the city that they were here during the worst of times when things get better.
You know, I had a mortgage company for like 15 years, a mortgage company, and let's not be duped. Like, you know, the worst famous words of Jack Evans. We're being duped right now by the council and the mayor. Because the mere fact that what their affordable housing is really is taking our homeless and putting them out in Maryland hotels. That's their affordable housing. You know what the other affordable housing is? Is giving them vouchers to move out to Maryland. That's their affordable housing, okay? And if you want, check the records. So what we got to do is to make sure that when we're talking about affordable housing, we are talking about 30% of their income going towards that affordable housing. But we got to also look at the developers who don't want to build in these areas of Southeast because of the mere fact that they're saying that they're not going to make any money. Or when we do allow them to build in the area, we don't enforce them to provide 30% of the income, the housing to the residents of District of Columbia. There's no enforcement that these individuals are not doing. So you're talking about Twilight Zone. Look at what's going on with these people. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. All right. Now, the question, but I've got some questions for individuals, and we've sent a lot of questions in here. I want people to get a chance to at least address your question. And if all of them answer every question, we're not going to be here. So, Tommy Wells, here's a question for you. How do you plan? First, it says parking is non-existent for church members who drive into our city to attend religious institutions. What is your plan to solve this problem? How do you plan to help the churches in this city with Sunday parking? Mr. Wells.
Bike trails.
Well, let me first start by saying that the parking issue with our churches is one of the symbolic issues of the pain around gentrification, the issues between black and white, young and old, new and old, and that really is a symbolic issue of what we're fighting with our neighborhoods as they change. So how have I done that in Ward 6? Ward 6 has changed dramatically since I've been there over the past 7 years. And what we've done is we've negotiated solutions for every church. And then, things change, so that sometimes those solutions have to change. But look at Imani Temple. Look around Stanton Park. All of that parking is illegal, but on Sunday we make it happen so that every parishioner that comes into the Imani Temple park around the park and park down different side streets. And you've seen us do this with angled parking at Shiloh. We still have more work to do, but this is something where we have to work it out on a church-by-church basis, and I have never been afraid to stand up to the new folks to say, this is an important church, it was here before you were here, and we're going to solve this. And I've done that all through Ward 6, and we need to do that throughout our city.
Mr. Mayor, homelessness has returned to the District of Columbia again, albeit it has never really left. What happened to the continuum of care that was initiated when you directed the Department of Human Services?
Well, I was the Director of Human Services 20 years ago, so what happened in between is the responsibility of the mayors who came after that mayor. That involves Mayor Williams, of course, Mayor Fenty. You go back and look, we've had hundreds of homeless families in the District of Columbia now for several years. Go back and read a Washington Post article from 2010. You will find that there were 800 families who were homeless at the time. That's more than we have in shelter now. Now, what I have proposed is a plan that we will get into apartments, 500 families over the next 100 days. We're working with the real estate community in order to be able to identify those units. We've already gotten one group that stepped up and said we will do 48 units. Another one has stepped up and said we will do 20 units. But that's just part of the problem. The other part of the problem, and the more fundamental one, and that is once people get there, how do you keep them there? Because so many of our families are so young. You've got people who are, moms who are 19, 20, 21 years of age. They need the life skills support, and we have reached out now, and we're continuing to reach out to our faith community, to engage our faith community in our One Congregation, One Family program that we have started. This all will be launched on April 1st, and we will have 500 families placed by the end of June, and we're going to keep them there because they will have a safety net to be able to support them.
Next, we're going to hear from Councilwoman Muriel Bowser. There was a column in the Washington Post today, Ms. Bowser, that said black women do not like you. Is that fair? What's your reaction to it?
Sure. Well, I think what it said was that we had some room to grow. That's what it said. And that has certainly been the story of my political career, actually, because in 2007, when I won the special election for the Ward 4 council seat, black women, you know who they voted for then mostly? Michael Brown. And so we learned a lesson for that, and I think they did too. We went out, we worked with all of the organizations, all of the neighborhoods, all of the communities, all of the leadership. And so at my last election, we won 75%, and all of the black women were with us. We want in every age group. And so that's exactly what we're going to do now. And I invite everybody to look at our record, because the issues that we focus on are the issues that are important to black women. So what also was written in our article, and it wasn't written that a whole lot of black women are with us, but there are, is that women are tough on women candidates. Did you know that? Women say, you know, woman candidate, you gotta be the best thing out there. You have to have the strongest resume. They don't do that to the men. But women also hold themselves to that high standard. That's why you only see 2 women on this panel. Because women say, I'm not gonna run unless I have that perfect resume. Well, I'm here to tell you that we have the right experience to lead the District of Columbia. I'm going to work every day for the next 2 weeks to make sure everybody hears our message and is going to be with us for the future of the city.
Jack Evans, if elected mayor, will you not only support to be an advocate for legislation to exempt seniors from paying property taxes and reduce the proposed age to 75 to 65? And when can we expect to reduce property taxes in the District of Columbia?
The answer is yes. Actually, we just moved the bill out of committee, and the council just passed the bill. It's on the mayor's desk to exempt seniors from property. I referenced that a little bit earlier, where if you are 70 years old or older, if you've lived in the city for 15 years and you earn less than $60,000 a year, you don't have to pay property taxes. But that's one of many approaches that I am proposing in order to relieve the tax burden, not only on our seniors, but on everyone in this city. The Tax Review Commission that Mayor Williams headed up made the recommendations back to us, and there are many, many positive recommendations. What I'm proposing is we raise the standard deduction, the personal exemption, that we create a new middle-class tax bracket, all of these things, and to put property tax caps in place. All of these things will make it easier for everyone who is a resident of the District of Columbia to continue to live here. Tax policy is my field. I've chaired the Finance and Revenue Committee now for over 13 years and have really been a major player in making the District of Columbia an affordable place, but also a place that is thriving. And that is critically important. The next mayor needs those skills and has to have those skills at the tip of their tongue. They have to be able to go to Wall Street and sit across the table from the bond rating agencies and know more than they do, so that we can increase our bond rating from a B when I started here to a AAA today. And that's the kind of underpinnings that have made our city work. Now is the time, though, where we take the prosperity this city is now enjoying and make sure everyone in the city can enjoy that prosperity. That's what I will bring to you as your next mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Orange. I'm reading this. This is not my opinions here, all right? The summer job program is a joke, and community-based organizations are in general given access to many grants which provide short-term services to needed children and families. What will you do as mayor to change these concerns?
Well, first of all, we're going to make sure that we have an excellent director of the Department of Employment Services that understands these issues. And then we're going to look at the youth program and make sure it's year-round. We're going to give them meaningful experiences. We're going to provide internships and things that they can grow on. And at the same time, we're also going to look at this whole idea of creating 100,000 jobs or filling 100,000 jobs by January 1, 2018 without having a plan to connect our 30,000 residents to those jobs. There are only 30,000 unemployed people in the District of Columbia, but we're going to provide 100,000 jobs, yet we don't know the profile of the people that are unemployed. So how are we going to employ them? Who are we building these jobs for? And it's the same with our students. We need to make sure that we're putting them on a track to learn and that we're connecting them to something. And that's what the problem here is in the District of Columbia. You know, Jack thinks it's great because we can go to Wall Street and tell them we have $1.75 billion in the bank. But what about the $783 million that's not circulating with our small business community in violation of the law? What about the $1.4 billion we've lost from the 246 public-private partnerships? And that comes from being a CPA, having an LLM, having been there with Anthony Williams, having been there with Alice Rivlin, those experts, and watching those numbers, and know that we should be doing a lot better, and we shouldn't be leaving people behind because there's enough for everyone. The people can keep making their money. We want them to make money because we need the revenue to take care of the people that aren't making the money. We want downtown to prosper because they have the buildings. That's where the taxes are applied to those commercial establishments. But you don't have that east of the river. So you get the money over here, you balance it to this side. It's all a balancing act. And that's what Vincent Orange is going to bring on April 1 when you elect me mayor of the District of Columbia.
Ms. Lewis, how do you rank D.C. statehood in your list of priorities? Did you include it in the D.C. Voters Guide?
You know what? It ranks exceptionally high. But as we look at priorities, I have been to numerous debates, and I have said that our right to have the same representation as any other state, and we say we are a state because we've got that city, county, and state function, should make sure that we are always aggressively promoting our self-determination. So no, I don't think it was in my voter guide, but what was in my voter guide was around issues around job creation and economic opportunity, and us as partners working together to make this city a city that works for everyone.
Mr. Shalal, what will you do to involve more small local business in the vendor process?
You know, this city is not very friendly for small businesses. And that might seem like a contradiction because we see a lot of businesses opening. These are not exactly small businesses. These are well-funded corporations that are opening these businesses. I would like to be able to see DCRA, the Department of Consumer Regulatory Affairs, be much friendlier. Right now, DCRA knows two words, yes and no. There's not a lot of effort to try to really move something forward. And I'd like to be able to say, as a business person, I would like to have a window in there, a small business window that is operated by someone who knows about business, who's been in business, who knows the challenges that a small business had, who understands that every day of delay for a small business means lost wages, lost money, lost hope, whatever it is, it's a problem. I'd like to be able to walk up to that window and have somebody guide me by the hand and say, this is how it's done. Let me be your advocate. Let me be your ally. I am not the enemy standing behind the counter here, trying to find an excuse to turn you away. And I think too often when we have a lot of bureaucratic mindset, the bureaucratic mindset says, I'm going to move this paper from here to here, and that's my job. But the entrepreneurial mindset says, what is the purpose of this paper, and is it going to translate into an actual job or something else? Is it going to really translate to a real business that's going to open in a week, next day, or whatever? So I'd like to see it a lot. May I talk a little bit more about just a couple more seconds? It's time?
Next time.
All right, because I also want to talk about labor issues, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Allen, what will you do to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods as new groups move in?
Well, first and foremost, you know, especially here in the church, in the house of the Lord, we got to make sure that we're protecting the seniors who come to church, to make sure that they have parking. They're able to park their cars and come to church every Sunday without any issues. How are we going to do that? We're going to basically allow you guys to have a sticker on your car stating that you are able to park there all day on Sunday, all day. The other thing is that, look, we have 1,200 people moving into the city, and that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing that we have that, but we've got to be able to work alongside with everyone. And then the way we're going to do that is basically making sure that everybody has the fair opportunity to be able to live in the city properly, especially our seniors, and making sure that our seniors are getting what they need, and that's the moratorium. I don't understand why we had to wait to this election to talk about a moratorium on your taxes, because we've been seeing a lot of seniors being pushed out the city for a long, long time. That's why a lot of our seniors are coming in from Maryland to come to church in D.C. because they couldn't afford to stay here in the city. So we've got to change the whole mindset of what we have. One thing what we got to do is bring back compassion and humanity back into the city. And when we start working on that, then all of a sudden now we will be able to have a one city, as our mayor said that we will have. But at this point right now, we don't have it. We have one side, which is the rich, and the other side, which is the poor, and we've got to stop it.
Okay. Next question is for everybody. If you are elected, what will you do? How will you ensure that your cabinet members and leadership team are deserving of your trust and support? And as a candidate, what have you done? What infrastructure have you put in place to ensure that people on your campaign team are trustworthy? We'll start with you, Mr. Wells.
Well, let me say that every campaign and everything, in terms of the campaign and how I've conducted myself in the council, I believe, and I'll leave it to you to judge, has been with the utmost integrity, transparency, and certainly to the standards that hopefully you expect from me as an elected leader. In terms of our who's going to run the government, I think first thing is there is plenty of talent right here in Washington, D.C. We do not need to go all the way out to around the country. There is so much talent in our city that I know that we've got the folks to run our city right here. And I think that we've got both young and old, seasoned and new, of folks that have a proven track record and also young people that are coming up. One of the things you'll see in my government is that you'll have risk takers, people that understand that in order to get better every day you have to take risks, and that's what I'll do. And I've always had very loyal, smart staff, and anybody that's worked with me will know that. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I don't have to talk about what I'm going to do. I've had a cabinet in place now for 3 years and 2+ months. And I don't think anybody who would want to be truthful about it would suggest that these people have not performed well. This is an incredibly diverse, talented group of people who've come together to be able to move this city forward. Look at our education leadership. Look at Kaya Henderson, who was the first appointment that I made. She is somebody who has moved along the process of educating our children. We heard references to the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs earlier. The fact of the matter is the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs has never worked better than it has now under the leadership of Nick Majette. We just made a commitment to have a single portal that would allow people to go to our business and regulatory reform process and be able to apply to 8 agencies at the same time. Let's talk about jobs. Our unemployment rate was 11.2% when I came into office. It is down today to 7.4%, an enormous degree of progress. And that has been done largely through creating a workforce development system and having a Department of Employment Services that is run extremely well, including, by the way, an effective summer youth employment program.
Ms. Bowser.
So Sam, I thought your question was how can we make sure we're surrounding ourselves with people that we trust, not only in government, but on our campaigns. And I think the part of the crisis that we're in leadership in the city right now is that we have leaders who think if something goes wrong in their campaign, it's somebody else's fault. If 4 people get convicted and 2 of them go to jail, not my fault. And you cannot run a government and say that how you ran your campaign shouldn't count. What we decided to do in our campaign, this is our 4th campaign, is make sure that we have the highest standards of ethics. I decided early on to hire a lawyer that would advise us on all ethical matters. I explained to all of my staff, you break the rules, you can't work here, period. You break the rules and you can't work here. And so, if people make mistakes, let's fix them. We made a mistake. We forgot to put some disclaimer language on a banner. We fixed it. We owned up to it and we fixed it. And that's exactly what you have to do in leadership if you deserve the moral authority to lead.
In order to make sure that the people who are working for you in the government or in your campaign have the highest standards, you have to lead by example. From my first job at the Securities and Exchange Commission in 1978, when I moved here, until today, I have had those ethics. I started working for the legendary Stanley Sporkin, who instilled all of those ethics into his young attorneys all the way through today. In my 23 years on the council, I've gotten to know everyone in the district government. And as mayor, I know who is very good and who is not so good. And I would certainly use those skills that I have derived in putting together an administration. I've already made the point. Kaya Henderson, I think, is great. I would keep her. Kathy Lanier, great. I would keep her. Others maybe not so good, and I would look around to find someone else. But I have to say that we have the talent in this city to be able to fill all of the jobs. On the campaign staff now, I have run campaigns since 1991, 9 altogether, and we have never had a violation in all of those years. And that, again, is leadership from the top, making sure the people who work for you are of an ethical nature.
Well, thank you very much for the question, because it gives me an opportunity to brag. Estelle Mathis-Lloyd was my chief of staff for 10 years, and she's a good St. Paul AME person, and under her leadership in my office, we were able to plant the seeds for economic development, for education, and for recreation that everybody's duplicating now across the city. Our committee clerk is now president of the PEPCO region. Our young attorney is now the vice president of PEPCO region. Our young intern, Kenya McDuffie, is now a council member, and it goes on. My staff that has worked with us, that we train, is just about on every staff in the council right now. And our award-winning cable television, my new chief of staff, James Brown, which Mayor Anthony Williams continues to praise, he is now on my staff, and so we continue to move forward. We have a very strong record. We produce minimum wage, living wage, paid sick leave, McKinley Technology High School. Had the president come out twice and award my programs. McKinley Technology High School, because the kids are 90% proficient in reading and math, and he came out and applauded our efforts for the minimum wage, making sure that people have an opportunity to have a good quality of life. So we'll continue on that path, and since I work hard, everybody on my staff has to work hard.
You know, Sam, I love that question. You know, I have been a resident of the District of Columbia for 35 years, and I recently when I came to this race, I said on November the 2nd, after going all around the city in all 8 wards, that I was going to run as an outsider. Not outside from the residents of the District of Columbia, but someone outside of the Wilson Building. Someone who would not be about the politics of the past, but the hope of the future. And so what did I do to put in place? I made sure first, I hired the best lawyer. He wrote the rules for the Democratic Party about elections. Number 2, I hired the best compliance team who writes the rules and works for federal candidates so we would have a higher standard that we would set in our campaign. But the most important thing that I did was around full disclosure. And that's where we have to be when we're talking about what do you want to do with the people who work for you in an administration. On day one, not only is it about leading from the top, but it is about the information that you share. I served in the Obama administration. I was vetted going in, I was vetted while I was there, and I was vetted on the way out. And no one up here on this stage has that type of record to be open and honest for you, the residents of the District of Columbia.
When I considered running for mayor, I had a meeting with Anthony Williams, and I said, what does it take to be a good mayor? And he said, you have to find really good people. And he said, this city attracts good people. He said, you have to inspire them, and you have to let them do their job. And I take that very seriously. The other thing that I have to do is lead by example. And I think that's where it really comes down to. It's all about setting the tone and the example for the people you lead. If you are trustworthy, if you are honest, if you have a high standard for your own person, then that trickles down and people know that they better not mess up because they're going to get fired in a minute. And I've fired people that have been not trustworthy. I fire them immediately. I don't give second chances if somebody steals. I don't give second chances if somebody lies. I just don't do that. So that's the style that I would bring. I would also make sure that the cabinet is representative of the city, that there are people in that cabinet that look like the people that live in this city. And I would make sure that I give a lot of opportunities for women, because right now our women representation is actually quite low in this city. It's not seen as a very positive thing in higher level management. So I would ensure that everybody that works there understands my standards and make sure that they adhere to them.
Well, I've been in business over 22 years, and I've helped so many people along the way. from helping individuals with their financial services to basically helping individuals with their mortgages, to moving on, basically having an organization called HUSH, Help Us Support Humanity, which is all about taking individuals who basically didn't have the ability to be with individuals who had a lot of money or political individuals and put them together so they can all come together and work along together and then help one another. But the thing about it is, a lot of folks are asking me, why are you running for mayor? The reason why I'm running for mayor is because Obama is president. That's why I'm running for mayor, because he basically allowed me to believe in myself and allowed me to be able to say, you know what, if I believe in myself, then y'all should be able to believe in yourself as well. And you got to make sure that you're telling your children that they should believe in themselves. And you shouldn't have no one telling them that they cannot do anything. Because see, once I become mayor, then I'm going to get statehood for this city. Then I become the governor, and then I'll run for president of the United States. Why? Because I believe in myself. And that's why I'm running for mayor of District of Columbia. But also, we should have had, if anything, we should have had an attorney general. So why didn't we have an attorney general when it happened in 2010? So if anything, these individuals are not basically doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's why we have this corporate corruption going on right now, because they're hiding stuff.
Okay, we're running, we got like less than half an hour to go, so I'm going to cut it down to 1 minute for responses, okay? All right. And I'll start again with you, Mr. Allen. The courts and the law treat minor felons and miscreants different from major felons. However, when it comes to getting employed after incarceration, they are treated the same. As a result, there are significant numbers of African-American males in the city who are qualified and employable but unable to find jobs. This is a problem. How are you going to fix it?
Well, first and foremost, I tell people all the time, your past is not equal to your future, plain and simple. So just because you did something bad in the past does not continue that you're going to continue to do the exact same thing. So what we got to do is make sure that when our children are coming home, because they are our children, they're coming home. So we got to make sure that we provide them with the jobs and the housing that's necessary. But again, we need to focus on a living wage job. And how we're going to do that is that what I propose is what we do is work with the small business individuals and the big business individuals and basically have them train these individuals. What the problem is that what we've been doing is sending a lot of individuals to these corporations that say they're going to train people and then they don't get them jobs. So they're stuck out on the street. So what we're going to do now is work directly with the business individuals and then give them an opportunity to train them for 6 months. If in 6 months they're not trainable, then they can let them go. But after 6 months, if they keep them on, then they keep them on for a year, they get a $1,000 tax credit. They keep them on for 2 years, they get a $2,000 tax credit. Look, it's not about welfare. We're taking the welfare people out the welfare base and we're going to put them in the tax base. That's how you do it. That's how you focus on getting the jobs that are necessary for people, a living wage job. But guess what? You got to ask the individuals what would they like to do first and foremost, and then once they tell you what they like to do, then they can move forward.
Thank you.
So there are 60,000 returning citizens in this city. That's about 1 out of 10 people that live in this city. That's a very large number. But oftentimes they don't have a lot of opportunities. We have an office of Returning Citizens Affairs that's woefully underfunded. We fund it at $286,000. That's enough for a couple of employees, a couple of desks, and some scotch tape. And that's not fair to the people that come here because they need a lot of help, they need a lot of services. Oftentimes, returning citizens are dropped off at a corner of a street with a bag full of goodies and directions to the homeless shelter. That is not a way to take care of 1/10 of the people that are in this city that are coming back looking for a second chance. I don't have to tell you what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what I do. What I do in my business is we have banned the box. We do not ask anybody if they've been previously incarcerated. All entry-level jobs, start with that. When we go into upper management, we do ask them, but if you started at the bottom and you grew up, you don't get asked. We don't do any background checks on anybody. Thank you.
You know, I had the opportunity today to be over at a workforce development program, and they were talking about returning citizens, and so the numbers are actually correct, but they're also startling. To think that we have 60,000 residents in our small hometown that are returning. So there are two issues that we must focus on as the next mayor, and this is what I promise I will do. As I chaired the DC Commission for Women, one of the biggest issues before I went into the Obama administration was working around economic opportunity. And for returning citizens, it's really around training. It's really around training. It's around development of those life skills. Because if we are going to be the city that we can be proud of, we have to be about reintegrating the citizens back into their family first and their community second. Because it is the continuum of that work that is going to allow them to be successful, and that is what I hope to do as mayor of the city.
Well, I'm very glad you asked that question, because this gives me the opportunity to once again put pressure on Councilmember Tommy Wells to hold a hearing on my bill, which would set up a $10 million fund for the returning citizens so they can be trained and gives them an opportunity to go out and be employed. You know, Andy Shalala is absolutely right. The Office of Returning Affairs only has a budget of $286,000, and that only covers the 3 employees in the office. They can't do anything else. They need some operating capital, and this is the reason why I've introduced this bill. Now, just think about it. We're a $12 billion government, just coming off of a $321 million surplus, $1.75 billion in our reserve, and we can't set aside $10 million for returning citizens to at least have a hearing on it to see how we would utilize that $10 million to get our returning citizens back into society where they can have a better quality life in the District of Columbia. Everybody's going to talk about, oh, there's 60,000 of them coming back. Well, I don't want to hear about that. I already know about that. Stop telling me about the problem. Start telling me about the solution. Have a hearing on my bill.
And I support the legislation to block the box before the council with the exceptions that make sense. And so, first of all, you have to remove the impediment for returning citizens to get a job. And then secondly, we need to provide the training for our residents who need to get jobs that exist in the District of Columbia today. There's no good to give somebody job training for a job that doesn't exist, and we've done that in the past. Let me give you the most recent example. It's the Convention Center Hotel, which is going to open in May. When we put that deal together, it was mandated that 51% of the jobs in the hotel, it's about 600 jobs, must be district residents. And so we have now had over 2,000 applications for those jobs. We have gone through and are going through the training, and when that hotel opens in May, there'll be 600 district residents, starting at entry-level jobs on the way up, that will be working that were not working before. That is the model that I am intending to use as mayor with all of the private-public partnership deals that we do to get our residents trained and working. And the training has to be comprehensive. It has to be life skills training, which we started those programs when we started the convention center, and job training. All of it comprehensive to get our residents back to work.
I actually don't think investment in job training is our problem. In fiscal 2010, we spent $100 million on job training. And all of that $100 million was not linked to people actually getting a job or any other outcomes for that matter. The problem we have for returning citizens is they need to work. Period. They need to work. So we need to look at and re-engineer how we spend that $100 million to incentivize, not just ask, not just partner with, but incentivize our private sector partners to hire our employees that are the hardest to employ. I support banning the box, but I also don't believe that it's a silver bullet, because employers will find a way to screen out people in another way. We really have to work with our employment community to incentivize them to hire DC residents.
First of all, anybody that evaluates the efforts around returning citizens simply on the size of the budget of the Office of Returning Citizens Affairs really doesn't get it. The reality is that we've created an office there that is a catalyst for having the rest of our agencies be responsive to making sure that returning citizens have opportunities in this city and in this government. We have in the past year hired 523 returning citizens into jobs in the District of Columbia government. That's where we need to focus, ladies and gentlemen, and our office is now a catalyst for being able to move forward with that. We've also gotten people 400 jobs otherwise. It is a matter of using our Project Empowerment Program, which we have in the Department of Employment Services, to be able to provide the training and life skills. The fact of the matter is, we had no workforce development system in the District of Columbia, and we have now created one, and we are focusing on the jobs that are being created. 3 areas: construction, information technology, and hospitality. The worst thing you can do for somebody is to train them for a job that doesn't exist, or they become trained and there is no job for them at the end of the day. We have stopped that. That is a charade, and it is time for us to make sure if we train somebody or promise somebody a job, that they actually get one at the end of the day, and that's what's happening with this administration.
This issue is a moral imperative for all of us. With 8,000 returning citizens every year, it's really for us as leaders to step up, because the war on drugs has been a war that really has not worked. Otherwise, all it's done is incarcerated a whole group of our citizens who are now been out of society and they're coming back and they need work. First thing we have to do, this ban the box is important. It's worked, as Vince Gray just said. The government has banned the box and it's worked. And the point, I have a bill that's coming up, it's been marked up, we're going to get to vote on it in the next 10 days, and we'll send it to Vince Gray, who I'm sure will sign it. It says you can't ask until after you've offered the job, because that way you know they're qualified, and the only reason you would not hire them is because of a conviction. And then that's the way we're going to do it. We're going to change the government's law to the same thing. The second thing we have to do is, Andy Shalal is right, many of our returning citizens come back with nothing and they're showed where the shelters are. They need a stipend for at least 6 months for housing, so they have a place to where they can look for work from. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do just a quick one question for the different people going back. I'll start with you, Mr. Wells. Sorry about that. 90,000 adults in D.C. cannot read. What will you do to improve adult literacy? 1 minute.
Well, again, if you go to chapter 2 in Andy Shalal's book, A Tale of Two Cities, that's where you hit the illiteracy of that. It is another moral crisis of our city. So what we have to do.
So you've been reading it, that's good.
So right now, people talk about the GED, it's really the first basic skills around the middle school level that we also have to double down on, because those are the people that are forgotten, shoved aside while we work on the GED. So we have to put the programs in our libraries where people are in every neighborhood. This is a major economic development investment for us. It's not just putting money into new developments or where cranes are. We've got to put money into our people so that they can get the jobs. We're generating more jobs than we have in over 20 years, but our local citizens are not getting those jobs.
Thank you.
So that's what we'll do.
Mr. Mayor, given the recent allegations about corruption in the last campaign, what evidence can you give that you have the integrity to lead?
That I have the what?
Integrity to lead.
You know what? One needs only look at my life. You know, I have led a life with an unblemished record. When I came out of school, I went to work with people with mental retardation. I spent a lifetime almost with that. I then went to work for the Department of Human Services as the director, where we moved that along. I then went, after that, to work with homeless children. I became a member of the council after that. I became the council chair, and now I'm the mayor. I would point to the following. There is not one allegation of contract impropriety since I've been the mayor in 3 years and 2 months. Not one allegation of grant impropriety in 3 years and 2 months. Not one allegation of Medicaid or a provider agreement impropriety since I've been the mayor. The fact of the matter is that I stand on the record of this administration over the last 3 years and 2 months as prima facie evidence of the ability to lead.
Ms. Bowser, elder abuse and financial exploitation are becoming the crime of the 21st century. What will you do to protect elderly D.C. residents from abuse and financial exploitation?
I think there's a whole series of things that we need to do to make DC a place where senior citizens can age in place. I authored a Sense of the Council resolution to make DC one of the most age-friendly cities in the world, and I'm pleased that the mayor is implementing an age-friendly DC policy. Seniors are being attacked from a number of ways. Housing, one of the biggest ones, and how people can afford to stay in their homes. And I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of people, even in this room, who don't know about all of the housing programs and property tax incentives available to you so you can age in place in your home. Transportation is going to be another key issue. How we get people, make sure Metro Access works, right, Mrs. Lee, so that we can connect people to their daily lives. But you know what else our seniors are really suffering from, to your point, is isolation. They suffer from isolation. I knock on a senior's door almost every week who needs help from the government, from family, and from friends. So we're going to make sure we have an Office on Aging, and I actually think that Dr. Thompson does an excellent job at the Office on Aging. Make sure they have the resources they need. Make sure that I have the stop sign. I'll say more in my closing.
Councilmember Evans, revenues from traffic cameras have contributed to the district's financial well-being. What is being done with this money, and what do you propose that we do with this money?
Okay, did you say revenue from?
Traffic cameras.
Oh, traffic, yes. Well, first of all, this is what I would do in Evans' administration. I'd freeze the number of traffic cameras we have out there, and I would reduce the fines right across the board. We've done that in the past, and I would reduce them even further. I have to tell you, there is nothing more maddening and for someone to get a $200 or $150 fine for a traffic camera in the mail, right? Doesn't that drive you crazy? And I'll tell you, it's bad enough to have to pay it, but just imagine if you were a family that was your utility bill for the month. Just imagine the onerous nature of that. So we have gotten to the point where this is way beyond public safety, and it has become a tremendous burden. So starting out, no more, a moratorium on cameras, a reduction in fines, and I would propose doing that in the budget that is coming down to the council on April 3rd, this year's budget. And if it is not in the budget sent down by the executive, it's something I'm going to propose as a council member. We have the money now that we can afford to reduce the fines and treat our residents with respect. That's what I would do.
Mr. Orange, the District of Columbia has a number of military personnel and veterans. What are you doing or will you do to improve services to those who have given their lives for this country and return home to be treated as disenfranchised, overly taxed, and sometimes homeless citizens? What are your plans for improving the services of the Office of Veterans Affairs?
The first thing I'm going to do is ensure that my bill, the Homeowner Equity Protection Act, becomes law that will prevent this government from taking our veterans and disabled folks' homes. Remember, the veteran lost his home for over $136, and the tax lien people went and sold his house, took his $200,000 in equity. That's what this government did, and not just that person, 500 people. And they have not made these people whole, and it's unfortunate that we're doing this while we're hoarding all this money. So I've introduced law that models the law in New York, where you cannot sell a homeowner's home that is a senior, from the disabled, or veterans. And I will continue to work with veterans. I tried to put in place veteran preference points so they can get some of these contracts. But the mayor's people, they didn't want to have all these preference points under the local small business category. But these are the ones that we need to work. Our veterans, our disabled, our seniors, we need to take care of them, and that's what Vincent Orange is going to do while we continue to prosper as a city.
Ms. Lewis, vocational education prepares people for specific trades, crafts, and careers. We need students to graduate ready to work. What is the current status of vocational education in DC, in your opinion, and what is your vision for vocational education in the city? What is your plan to achieve that vision?
You know, we were all very excited and delighted when we saw the mayor put more money in vocational education. But do we have to wait until we have an election to start talking about where we're going to invest in our residents in the District of Columbia? We've got to be investing in our residents right now on day one. And that's why It is not just about vocational training, it's also about technical. It's also about the skill training, it's about the life skills. It is about the continuum of making sure that if we train all of these individuals, that there are jobs there for them. And that's why in the plan that I released about how do we continue to expand the middle class, it is all about making sure that someone who reports directly to me, outside of the people who are in the government, but someone right in the mayor's office, who can make sure that all the time we're counting those jobs, because we have got to, that's why I have called for a job coordinator inside of the mayor's office on day one, because we have got to make sure we match up the work, the job, and the skills all together.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shalal, if you are elected, will you keep the existing police chief? If so, why? If not, why not? If you don't know, explain why that is that you don't know.
I would have a serious conversation with her. I think one of my concerns was when we were seeing this extraordinary number of African-American males being arrested, she said, when somebody asked her what's going on, she said, well, we run a colorblind agency. Now, in this city, if you're colorblind, you got a problem. Because the issue of race is very, very significant. It's an important issue, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about gentrification, whether you're talking about healthcare, whether you're talking about whatever you're talking about in this city, you're talking about race. I would make sure that I convene my entire staff the first day. I would convene them for a retreat. I would make sure that we have a conversation that's very deep and very personal about race. How does race impact your life? How does it impact your work? How does it impact your family? How does it impact the way you interact with people in government and outside of government? Unless we have that serious conversation and then spread that conversation to everybody else, including every ward, to have that serious conversation, we will never be able to move forward as a one city.
Okay, the last question goes to Mr. Allen. Youth violence in schools can be a pipeline to juvenile delinquency in prison. How do you plan to reduce youth violence in schools in order to eliminate the pipeline to prison?
Well, first and foremost, we've got to basically make sure that the children are getting not just summer jobs, but they're getting all year-round jobs. So that's the key thing, because a lot of times your environment dictates to you what you're gonna do and what you're gonna act. Because I know for a fact that when I was in a bad environment at one point, then I was doing things and I was acting out because of the mere fact that not because I didn't have good parents, but my environment would tell me what to do. So what we gotta do is make sure that we give the children an idea of what they would like to do and provide them with an outlet. Because then now the environment can't dictate to them. So if you give them a job, a job that they would like to do, and again, all year round, then they have something to do every single day. Also on top of that, we gotta make sure that we provide the rec centers and we keep the rec centers open for these children. Because right now, a lot of our rec centers are not open. They're closing down, and then some of them, basically when the children are trying to utilize the rec centers, they're saying that it's being used by other people, they're renting them out. So the children are outside playing dice or whatever the case may be. So we gotta make sure that we focus on the children and make sure that the children are getting what they need. But also, if anything, make sure we have the parents involved and get them the living wage job that they need, and they will take care of their own children.
Okay. Now, closing remarks from Mr. Green. 1 minute.
Can we make that a minute and a half, actually?
Minute and a half, Mr. Green.
All right, thank you very much. Patience is a virtue. I want to thank you all for coming out today. I heard a lot today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to have to read my notes here because there are about 10 questions, and I'm going to start here and do it like this. Charter schools, no. No to moratorium, okay? We got to invest in public schools. I'm a big-time proponent of public schools because I was produced in the public schools. Roosevelt High School, Banneker Junior High, and Bruce Elementary, Ward 1 and Ward 4, right all along the Georgia Avenue corridor. And then I like that school down there, right across the street from Banneker Junior High School, Howard University. And I attended that as an undergraduate. Affordable housing, ladies and gentlemen. We need to get back, DC that is, into the affordable housing business. When you don't vet developers, this is what you get. You get sweetheart deals. They tell you they're going to build some affordable housing, and then they don't do it, and then you argue with them, and you have to eventually end up taking them to court so they can do something that they should have been doing originally. Okay? Public Defender Service. I once worked there in the re-entry program, folks. And the issues that were on the floor in 2004 when I was a legal intern at that particular time was voting, custody for the re-entry guys that were coming back. Those were the key issues that I worked on at that particular time. So I was at the front lines in that particular office at that particular time. Ladies and gentlemen, protecting the integrity of the neighborhoods. We all know where DC has come over the last 15 years. Everybody, when it snows, we all come together. There is no divide. Okay, we all know we do have a divide in the District of Columbia. But guess what? You know, because of the snow situation, we help our neighbors out, but we can't go back to not speaking to each other and things of that nature, because I want to sit back and say it's been an enjoyable process here at the historic AME Church Metropolitan, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you really thoroughly enjoyed this particular debate, and I'll see you at the polls April 1st. Mike Green, 25-year veteran community organizer, and also born here in Washington, D.C. My mother spent 30 years as a social worker in D.C. government and the Department of Human Services. Thank you very much, D.C.
Okay. Thing I'm going to say, when we got here tonight, a lot of us couldn't hear because of all traffic stuff, and a friend has a question. If you want to answer it, quick. The president is nearby, but he seems to be far away when it comes to advocating for this city. What will you do to change that? Anybody want to take that on? All right, Ms. Lewis.
I don't know why. You know, President Obama got one of the highest voting records out of the District of Columbia, but the most important thing that we can do with the president is to be the real partner with this administration and any administration going forward. And that is the kind of work that I have done over the 35-year history of my career, and that is exactly what I will do as the mayor of this city.
As the elected mayor, the first thing I would do is ask to have a meeting with the president, and hopefully he would grant that. And in meeting with President Obama, I would put the cards right on the table. President Obama, you are in your last term. You have the opportunity to be a spokesperson for the District of Columbia. You can promote statehood for the District of Columbia. We need you, President Obama, to take a leadership role in Congress and in your administration to promote statehood for the District of Columbia.
Okay.
With the power of the presidency behind us, we can get there.
Thank you. Mayor.
I think in this job, you got to stand up for your city, first and foremost. And that is exactly what I have done. That's what I did when we had the shutdown back in October. I stood up, I said, you know what? My shutdown plan is the following, and that is every employee in the District of Columbia and every operation that is essential in the District of Columbia. We are not shutting down a thing in the District of Columbia. And by the way, we use our reserves to be able to keep our government open. I just stood up to the Secret Service recently and said, you cannot shut down 14th Street like that because we have a city to run. If you look at the president's budget that just came out, you will see for the first time ever, not only budget autonomy in there, but legislative autonomy in there. And we have got to, as a people, I've got to stand up as the mayor and continue to fight, and the 647,000 people in this District of Columbia have got to stand up and do the same thing, because otherwise we will make no progress, and what you will get is a lot of rhetoric and no action.
Mr. Orange.
You know, I happened to be in that meeting when all about this shutdown, and the shutdown started with the council. When the mayor was in the meeting, he wasn't where the council was. It started with David Grosso. I backed up Grosso. Catania jumped in. Jack Evans jumped in. The entire council said, no, we are not going to let them shut down the government. And then the mayor got the courage and went forward. But it started with the council. And so we just want to set the record straight. But as President Obama, before President Obama leaves, I want to have a discussion with him because I need 500 acres from the president before he leaves. He needs to turn over RFK Stadium to the district government as well as Langston Golf Course because we can do something with that. Once we build that stadium, we will have a non-producing asset of 190 acres at RFK Stadium site. We need that in our inventory. And we also need Langston Golf Course because we need to plan for the future. So that's what I want to talk with the president about as we also talk about statehood.
Okay. As I said, if you want to jump up, go ahead. You can jump up on this. If not, we're going to go to the closings.
Yeah, if I could say something.
All right.
I want to commend the mayor, actually, for showing the courage to stand in front of the Congress and we be able to speak out. I had never been so proud in my life as a Washingtonian, I have to tell you. It's wonderful. This question came I was on DC Vote for a while, and I know that DC Vote is very different than the issue of statehood, and I was trying to push them into the idea of statehood. I ended up leaving DC Vote, but one of the reasons why I was so adamant about it is the fact that every time we had a gathering, every time we wanted to have a gathering of people on Emancipation Day, which is April 16th in this city, we try to gather people to talk about statehood, we'd end up maybe with 100 people, if we're lucky. And if the weather is bad, you may end up with half that. So we have to make sure that people care about this issue enough. We have to make sure that we take it out to the street. We have to make sure that we get people excited about the idea of statehood, excited about the idea of rights. And you know what? Oftentimes it takes somebody coming from outside the city to recognize the fact that we don't have statehood rights. When somebody moves it, when we live in this city for a long time, we just accept it as that's just the way it is. But unfortunately, it takes someone from the outside to oftentimes call it out. So I think it's time for us to have it and bring people out in the street with pitchforks to try to put an end to this injustice.
Thank you. So on the statehood question, this is what I learned. We went down to protest. We got put in jail. We spent 14 hours in jail. So what my experience was there was talking to a lot of people who have been in the statehood fight for a long time, is that we've been doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. So there's a crisis, we respond. Then everybody goes back home. There's another crisis and we respond. What we need in our statehood fight is some people to roll up their sleeves and some real practical effort. We need to, first of all, send a message to the Congress that we're going to be up there every day talking about it. So what is our concerted plan to be at the Congress every day talking about all our federal issues? Our bridges, Walter Reed, St. Elizabeth, our national parks right here in the District of Columbia, and our self-determination. That's what we need. We know that there's some things we need along the way. We have to unhitch our budget from the federal budget. We know that we have to have legislative autonomy so we don't have to send our laws up there for them to sign. And we have to have a fresh start at the top. We have to send the message that we have our house in order. It's not fair. We know that the states have people that aren't doing the right thing, but we are the province. We are currently under the thumb of the Congress. So if we want them to listen to us, let's get our affairs in order.
Thank you. All right.
Well, if we want to get statehood, we got to definitely work with the other congressmen in the area from Maryland and Virginia. We got to work with them and let them know that, look, you know what, at the end of the day, this city is basically under siege because of the mere fact that because we don't have the right of autonomy, we're basically slavery to the federal government. We're slaves to this federal government completely. So we got to make sure that we discuss that issue with them first and foremost. But also we got to talk to the president and make sure the president understands that, look, we've given you 4 years. We give you 4 more years. At the end of the 4 years, why don't you help us get statehood? Because you've got the power to do it. And it's not going to hurt you to do this. So why don't we want you to provide us what we deserve, and that's to have the autonomy that we need. And Mike Plotkin, he's right here, he can tell you that he's been fighting this for years. And this young lady, I've seen her for years and years saying free DC. We've got to get out there and we got to make sure that everybody understands that we are not getting what we deserve. And we got to let people know, I suppose, all over in the United States, because they don't know. Most people do not know that we basically are not a state. They think we are a state, so that means that we have to advertise to individuals and also, again, work with our congressmen and let them understand that whatever they want us to do, we need to do it so we can get statehood.
Okay. All right, now we're going to have closing statements in the opposite order, and we're going to start with 2 minutes. Andy Shalal.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. When I decided to call the city home, I wanted to be the best home there is. I wanted to make sure that everything works and everything works for everybody. Because to me, I see ourselves as a family. When we have 5 members of our family and one of them is destitute, we cannot go to sleep. When we have a family with 3 children and one of them goes hungry at night, that is not a family that's functional. I want to make sure that we have all of these things in order. We have the resources. We just need the leadership and the vision. I don't want to be a city that is rated #1 in childhood hunger. I don't want to be a city where if we were a state, we'd be at number 51 in our education system. I don't want to be a city where 60% of our kids are dropping out of school before they finish high school in some areas. I don't want to be a city where the illiteracy rate is over 50% in some areas. I don't want to be a city where there are more jobs than people to fill them because the people that need to fill the jobs don't have the qualifications to make it. That is not, to me, a functional city. We could do so much better. We can have affordable housing that's truly affordable by defining affordability as we had done today, by understanding that it's not about just a name saying affordable housing where most people can't afford it, but really affordable housing. We have to preserve public housing to make sure that it's safe and clean and well managed. We have to make sure that we have all of these services. I've been doing business in this city for over 25 years. I know how to lead, I know how to succeed, I know how to create jobs. I've created over 530 jobs. When they're talking about sick leave and living wage and all of these things, I've already done it in my places. I promote it from the bottom. I hire women, I hire people of color, I hire people that are qualified to do the job, and there's a lot of them there. I want to thank you. My name is Andy Shalal, number 2 on the ballot, and ask for your vote on April 1st. Thank you very much.
Rita Lewis.
You know, my name is Rita Jo Lewis, and you see that middle initial, that middle name, it says Joe. And I'm telling you that's because I have been fighting all my life around issues around diversity and inclusion and economic opportunity. And so when I look around this audience, you know, I continue to be humble as I go before the residents in the District of Columbia, because I say to you, I want to earn your vote. There's no one here that's entitled to your vote. And especially when I look around the women in this audience, and this is a meeting where women have been in the forefront around putting this session together. Because as I chaired a local DC committee on the Commission for Women, it was very, very clear that we have 52% of our residents are women. 60% of the voters are going to be women. So not only are the women and the men, of course, going to be the decider in this election, the women are the one who have said to me time and time again, all they ask for is a fair shot. And a fair shot around making sure that we get great jobs for our women. Because they are the ones making, we, all of us, are the ones making the decisions around health care. You're the ones making the decisions around jobs, and you're the ones making the decisions around education. That's why we have seen that job creation and the diversification of the jobs in the District of Columbia are the #1 issue that all of us are facing. That's why we have seen that having a clean and ethical and a transparent and open government is also ranking right up there as a #1 priority for the residents of the District of Columbia. On April the 1st, we're going to be making a major decision. I ask for your vote on April the 1st, and right now, you know, we have started early voting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rita Jo Lewis.
Tommy Wells.
Well, being here at Metropolitan reminds me of what a special city this is. Metropolitan is very much not just a special church, a special place, but it has seen our history through good and bad. I remember I came here as a social worker over 30 years ago, and if you remember the mid to the late 80s, we had the surge of crack, HIV, the city went broke, and we've had challenges to our government over the years. You've seen when the control board came in and took over and took away home rule. We're going through another tough time right now. We're going through a tough time. I know that from the time that I was a social worker and worked to rebuild the child welfare system, went on the school board, worked hard to rebuild our school system. We still have work to do. And on the council, we can't always choose our battles, but I'm there to also try to rebuild the integrity of our government. As we've gone through and see 3 of our favorite sons either go to prison or be convicted of felonies, 3 more of our council members have been admonished for breaking the basic rules that we have there in the ethics board, our mayor under investigation. We are going through a tough time. But what I promise you, that as mayor, I will continue to always fight for what's right. I will fight for what's best for our city. I'll do it with integrity, and we'll do it together. In everything that I've ever done as a leader in DC, we will get through this as just this church has been through everything else that our city has seen. We will get to the other side of this, and we'll get to the other side of this together. Thank you very much.
Vincent Orange.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going through some difficult times right now. However, our future still remains bright. We still have an opportunity to move forward. Now it's time to seize the moment, seize our future, and full speed ahead. And we're going to do this by, one, closing the income gap, which I've already started. I've brought the minimum wage, $11.50 per hour, the living wage, $13.60 per hour, sick leave for our tip wage workers. We're going to keep the jobs and revenue in D.C. by connecting the 30,000 unemployed people to the 100,000 jobs we're going to create or fill by January 1, 2018. We're going to protect your assets and the district's assets. No one will lose their homes in an orange administration while we got all this money. That is not going to happen. We're going to close the achievement gap. The council has already passed my bill, the Early Childhood Education Act of 2012. It just needs to be funded and implemented, and we'll close that achievement gap. The majority of the council has already signed on to my bill to build $1 billion of affordable housing over the next 10 years, $100 million a year in 4 categories. We're going to build affordable housing for seniors on fixed income, for the homeless population, for those households, $30,000 to $60,000 households. I've already got you the wages, so I know what you're making. Now I know you need a home. We're going to get you Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I need to get you on that first level so you can move to the next level. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you all know that this entire system, especially this media, has tried to lock Vincent Orange out. They try to say an African-American man who is an attorney, a certified public accountant, has 4 degrees, planted the seeds for economic development, for education, for recreation, has connected all these dollars, is not worthy of running for mayor. Come on, we're in the nation's capital. Don't believe the hype. Vincent Orange is working for you, always have been, and I am so happy that I have a heavenly Father that looks out for me and my family, and the cream rises to the top every single time. Ain't nothing they can do to keep us down as long as the people are with us. Vincent Orange, number 4 on the ballot. I'm here. I'm your humble public servant. Thank you.
Muriel Bowser.
Well, thank you everybody for your attention. I'm privileged to represent Ward 4 in the Council of the District of Columbia, and on May 1st, it's going to be 7 years. I want to thank neighbors from every ward of our city for really sharing with me their aspirations, their hopes for the future of our city. What they want to do is make sure that we have a city that continues to prosper. DC right now is a very different DC from the DC I grew up in. My family has been here for 5 generations, and as a child growing up, we were the murder capital of the world. The Congress has taken us over. We were broke. Schools were spiraling out of control. A lot of people have worked long and hard to bring us back. Long and hard. You've worked long and hard, and you've paid a lot of money into this government so it can work for you. One thing that we cannot do is take our progress for granted. One thing that we cannot do is wait for the future to shape us. We have to shape our future. So I got into this race last March 23rd because I became very concerned with the vision for the future. I know that we have to speed up school reform if we're going to close that achievement gap. We're going to focus on expanding middle schools, on brink schools that are right on the brink of being neighborhood schools of choice. I know that we can't get ready for our future if we're not dead focused on our infrastructure. How are we going to make our public transportation work better? I know we won't be a DC that any of us recognize if we don't focus on intentional policies to grow our middle class. That is what our campaign is about, and that is why I'm asking for your vote tonight and to look long and hard at our campaign for the future. Thank you.
Jack Evans.
First of all, I want to thank Metropolitan, I want to thank AWARE, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight to listen to us tell you about our vision for the future of the District of Columbia. And let's give Sam Ford a big round of applause. Sam, great job. Great job. I'm Jack Evans, and I'm number 1 on the ballot. Now, it's too bad I didn't draw that into Mega Millions tonight, right? I hope over the course of the last 8 months, and over the course of this evening, I have been able to show you that I have the financial expertise, the economic development experience, the ability to create affordable housing and create jobs, and the ability to fix our schools. I hope I've been able to show you that the 23 years that I've spent on the council and the 36 years that I've spent in this city, I have developed the talent to be the next mayor of the District of Columbia. And I think I've shown that through the actions and the accomplishments that we have seen over the years. When I came on the council in 1991, we were a city that's struggling. And today, we are a city that is viewed as one of the most dynamic in America. And I'm proud to have been a part of that renaissance. But what you need in the next mayor, in addition to all of that, is someone who knows the history of this city. And somebody, as I look out over the audience tonight, to say to all of you, you have been a part of that. And we cannot forget that you have been a part of it. And the commitment I make to all of you tonight is that you, as your next mayor, I won't forget that. And I will make sure that everyone in this audience tonight and in this city is included in the future of our city. That's what we need in the next mayor. That's the vision for our city. The inclusion of everyone who was here before, who has made our city the great city it is today. As your next mayor, I promise you, that is my vision for our future. And I want to thank you all again for coming out tonight.
Vincent Gray.
Thank you very much. I too want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Metropolitan for hosting this and all the folks who came together to be able to put tonight's forum together. I am a native Washingtonian. I grew up in the District of Columbia. I'm a product of the schools, the public schools of the District of Columbia. I'm also the product of two parents who never had the opportunity to even go to high school. Yet they knew how to raise children. They knew how to be good, contributing citizens in this city. When I came into office, we were at the brink of having no discretionary dollars. And I said we were going to restore this city to having fiscal stability. And that is exactly what we've done. We talk about, you hear people talk about hoarding money. We're not hoarding money. We have now $1.75 billion in the bank, and we've worked for that. My first year in office, we had furloughs, and we got, within a year, the city back to fiscal stability, and we gave the money back to the workers because the workers deserved that. They worked with us through those times. I said we were going to continue with education reform. I am the architect of the early childhood education program in the District of Columbia. And frankly, when you look at early childhood education, it ultimately, over the years ahead, will be the answer to our children learning. This city made a mistake a number of years ago to eliminate vocational education. We are restoring career and technical education. We will have 9 academies that are being planned now. They will open in August. I said that we were going to get people back to work. That was a part of the vision. We have come from an 11.2% unemployment rate to a rate of 7.4%, which is the lowest unemployment rate we have had in the District of Columbia. I said we were going to have development. We've got development going all over this city at this stage. Most recently, the Skyland Shopping Center, which was undone for 28 years, is now moving forward to be built. Thank you. I ask for your vote so we can continue progress in the District of Columbia.
Mr. Allen.
Well, I always like to say that I'm blessed to be here, and I thank God always for individuals like you guys who allow the democratic process to go on. Especially Aware, thank you for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it. Metropolitan, it's a pleasure being here. Pastor, is a great, I thank you very much for allowing me to be here. Let me tell you this. Right now, we're in a serious situation right now. And that situation is basically where we have a cloud over the council and we have a cloud over the mayor. And one thing is I say this, that we should not allow individuals to conquer and divide us. Because of the mere fact that that's basically what I personally feel that this whole system is about to try to do. So we got to make sure that we focus on our Democratic Party and make sure that our party basically is intact, because we do have a Republican who's going to try to take over the city. All right, so please look at this situation very seriously and make sure that we deal with our Democratic candidate and we support them all the way through. The other thing is, let me tell you this, I came from Panama. And when I came from Panama, man, I was blessed that my father was with me because he was in the military, he was in Vietnam, and they only gave him 24 hours to live. So I thank God that he was here with me to help me move forward in my life. But when I came here from Panama to the United States, I couldn't speak it in English. And then, my teachers told my parents that I was slow. Now I'm running for mayor of Washington, D.C. Look, let me tell you this. My parents believed in me, and they told me, look, you know what? Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something. And that's what I'm going to do for our children now, is I'm telling them the same thing, that you can do whatever you want. Even our grown folks, even our seniors, you can do whatever you want still. So look, I'm running for mayor because of the mere fact that we have issues going on in the city, and these issues have been going on for 25 years that I've been here, and let me tell you this, these individuals have been watching it go on, and now all of a sudden that they're running for mayor, or they're running for elected office, now they're talking about they're going to change things. Look, the gentrification is serious, and it's very serious, and we got to stop it, and in my administration, we're going to do that. And Mr. Ford, I really appreciate you. You're a good man.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to the audience. It's wonderful to be here in this historic church. I'd like to thank the candidates. This is hard work, and I do respect the people who run for office, and I think they deserve respect, and I always try to show it. To end, I'm going to turn this back over to the master of this house, Pastor Ronald Braxton.
Thank you. Give Brother Ford a big hand, will you? Come on, give him another big hand. Give all our candidates a big applause. Come on, give the candidates a big applause.
Thank you so much for coming out. If any of you are interested and aware in the programs that we do, we're trying to be a partner with the city. Please see any member of the group, black suits, teal, except I don't have mine. Just pass your name and telephone number and we will follow up with you. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.